dude, there's a lot of ways to think about karma, right? And
Yep.
and so Weber's making this kind of classic Orientalist mistake of thinking of the East as one thing and karma as one thing.
Because karma was there before Buddhism, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
It's started in Hindu traditions or
Right.
in...
Well, I mean, it's tricky because
But it's earlier than the Buddha.
right, it's starting in the same traditions out of which
Phails at philosophy.
Hinduism develops as we know it today. Because the Hinduism we know today is really a product of developments within South Asian religion and thought that are later than the development of Buddhism. So the kind of way we frame Buddhism as growing out of Hinduism is not really helpful, I think, to understanding what happens, because we think of Hinduism as we have it today, and like many of your schools of Hinduism are articulating themselves as schools. Like Vedanta is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Partly in response to Buddhism. Now, that doesn't mean those ideas aren't there, but the idea of putting together a kind of school, putting together an ashram system, that clearly seems to be a response to developments in South Asian culture of like Buddhism. I mean, there's Jainism and other kind of schools that develop, but those kind of happen first that are outside what will be kind of the unorthodox schools. In the way Hindus think about it later, is there's the orthodox schools and the unorthodox schools that don't accept the Vedas.
Yeah, I think
right?
what I'm getting at is that karma being really
there
old,
already.
That it's really that old and kind of some kind of foundational or some,
Right.
Old school ideology, and it's kind of found its way into a bunch of these religions.
Right. Jainism, it's at the heart of Buddhism. It's at the heart of their analysis. And then
Hinduism.
The Hindu schools, it's at the heart of it. And we do see a period of time, like if we look at the Vedic texts, which are our ancient Sanskrit texts, and we look at the earliest texts like the Rig Veda, there doesn't seem to be an idea of karma and rebirth there, right? There's not that kind of...
Are karma and rebirth tied together?
Mm-hmm.
Because karma is not necessarily in this lifetime always.
Right.
But it can be.
It can be, but I think if you're looking at it as a solution to the problem of evil, it's so easily invalidated. Like if you're confining that idea that you will reap what you sow to the human lifetime, you can find so many examples where you're like, no, that person, she sowed a lot of good and she reaped a lot of suffering.
And so the only way we make sense of that is we say in a past lifetime,
right? So
you did something and you're doing this life, this inner
classic understanding, Western understanding of karma, which is not necessarily like there isn't ways this is articulated in Asian texts. It's just that it's one way karma is articulated in Asian texts, which is what Weber's responding to. This sort of classic Western idea of karma is this kind of like, it's this solution to the problem of evil. It's that, this big infinite universe, and we're reborn into it over and over again. And so if it doesn't make sense why I am suffering this injustice when I'm a good person,
you have to look back into your past life. I
probably did something bad in the past. And that is definitely, like I said, it's a note. What she's saying is it's not the only way. And part of what she's trying to articulate is how fundamentally different Buddhist notions of karma are than that kind of notion of kind of this system of justice and of rebirth.
Yeah.
That's embedded in kind of this notion that like my notion of a moral universe has to align with the system of the world I'm a part of. And to have a sense of justice, I have to have a sense that I live in a just world.
There's this part of this idea of making sense of karma is a way to make sense of this question. And then I think there's this other part of like karma's a way to get folks to behave a certain way. I can think of karma as one example of what we now use here with law. right? And punishment. We say, if you do this, this is going to happen. We've got this clear set of laws. This is the prescribed thing. We have it more codified here, but I imagine that's why they told people to do this.
Right.
Hey,
So,
karma exists because we want you to behave a certain way.
right.